but that's okay. We will be recording this video of this meeting and sending it all out to you all in a follow-up email, along with any action items we discussed today, and as well as any resources provided by our speakers today. And just want to say welcome one more time. My name is Vanessa Gudello. I am the organizer for Westchester Alliance for Sustainable Solutions. So nice to see so many familiar faces and some new faces here today. As many of you know, WASS is an alliance of community organizations from Westchester County working to close the Wheelbrader trash incinerator here in Peekskill, where the county's trash is burned. Just this past January, we started to convene these monthly Zero Waste Task Force meetings to build a collective countywide effort with representation from various sustainability committees and county-based organizations across Westchester, that many of which you are involved in, to work together and advance truly sustainable waste management practice and end dirty garbage incineration here in Westchester County. And as I mentioned, though this is our fourth meeting, we have been recording our meetings, many of which are available on YouTube. So feel free to watch those meetings if you'd like to catch up. We typically hold different topics, conversations at these meetings, as well as have brainstorm.
Sorry, Vanessa, I muted you trying to admit someone from the waiting room. My apologies.
No worries. Can folks hear me now? Okay, great. And folks can see my screen as well, right? Okay, amazing. Well, I don't know what folks last heard, but again, we've been holding these meetings on a monthly basis. They are available for on YouTube for your viewing, for those of you who haven't attended ours in the past. But we will continue to hold these meetings on the second Wednesday of every month and invite you to join us, and invite your colleagues, any friends or neighbors that you know on your local CACs or your local sustainability committees, because we'd love to hear about, have your perspectives, and ensure that we're all working together for this common goal to advance sustainable waste management practices here in Westchester. Now, before I get into the agenda, I do want to thank all of those who attended our meeting last month. I know that our WASS members really enjoyed to get to know many of you and hear from so many of you about the work that you're currently doing or interested in getting more engaged in. We did have kind of a more intimate breakout session with folks who participated. So I really want to say thank you to all of you for your active participation, for your sharing. We look forward to building with you in the future. And we look forward to having similar breakout sessions as well. But today, we're really happy to be welcoming legislator Erica Pierce and Catherine Parker to talk about the single-use foodware bill that was recently passed by Westchester County, aimed at further reducing the amount of plastics that go into the county's waste stream. We are also very lucky to have the folks here that really helped make this amendment legislation possible. Many of you may not be aware that this effort was actually led by Mamaroneck students under the guidance and mentorship of teacher Joe Liberty, who we have on the call, as well as mentors Michael Gottfried and Jenna Hafelin. So we're really excited to hear from those folks first. And we will hear from them a little bit later, but first we're going to start with our legislators who will be giving us a briefing on the bill. I do want to note that we will have time at the end for some Q&A. So if you have any questions, please feel free to put them in the chat during the presentation, and we'll make sure to ask them during that time. With that, I'd like to hand it off to the lead sponsor, legislator Erica Pierce, to kick us off to talk more about the single-use plastic foodware bill. Now go ahead and stop sharing.
I don't know, am I successfully unmuted?
Yes.
Okay, excellent. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Erica Pierce. I'm the county legislator from the 2nd District, which is the largest district in Westchester County. It includes Mount Kisco, Bedford, Lewisboro, Pound Ridge, North Salem, and half of Somers. It's big enough that you could fit several other districts inside of our boundaries. And the good news for those of us in that district is we are so big because we have a lot of the county's parks We have, I think the estimate from county parks is we have roughly a third of all the county park land within the district, as well as a whole reservoir system. We really are a district with lots of natural beauty, which makes District 2 unique. I am a new legislator. I was elected in November of the year prior, so I've only served for about a year and a quarter now. And when I first came into office, I came into office with a draft of a bill in hand, and that is the bill that became Upon Request. It was my number one goal coming into office, and I was very lucky to be able to get it together and passed in what in the world of county time is a relatively short period of time, a year and a quarter. And for me, the legislation it pivots on a couple of different issues. It's not unique. At the time that we started talking about it, there were a couple of other places in the county that already had adopted legislation of similar sorts or were discussing legislation of similar sorts. Ours, of course, was a little bit different because I particularly wanted to focus on a couple of key ideas. And I know there are ideas which WASS is already working on, so I want to highlight those. Some of these ideas what are the things that we need? We need to redefine that because in reality, we have been told that we need things that we absolutely don't need. What is free? We've also been told that we are getting these things that we supposedly need for free, when in reality, those items cost. And lastly, this idea that all environmental bills, that all legislation to improve our environment costs money and is a net expense rather than something which may in fact be a long-term benefit for us as a whole. So we need to start looking at legislation in a very different way when we're talking about environmental issues. Instead of just talking about what this bill might cost us, we need to talk about what this bill might save us. And there are lots of different buckets for saving. The nice thing about this particular legislation is it was made very obvious that there was money to be saved by tackling waste. So I know I don't need to lecture all of you guys about the issues with plastics. We're talking particularly about single-use plastics, the items which are given out to us often in businesses and establishments where we don't even want them, where they are used at best once. Some of us maybe wash them and use them again, but most of us use once and thrown away. In a lot of cases, these are items which nobody uses at all. I would say that this legislation was born in my junk drawer because I had the guilt complex. I could not throw any of these items away. They came into my house. We didn't use them. And they just kept building to the point where my husband really threatened to do me in for it. So they moved from one drawer to another drawer to a bucket. And eventually, when we announced this legislation, we dumped them on the conference table as a gigantic stream, because that's really what they are. So this legislation, again, pivoting on these ideas, what is it that we need? So it takes away at this point in time, still, most restaurants give us all these things, whether or not we need them. We think we are getting them for free. In reality, our businesses are paying for them. And then they are paying to dispose of them. And then, of course, we as a society are paying to dispose of them yet again. I don't know if anyone's taken a look at the news today. There's a massive recycling fire in Indiana. They're talking about toxic fumes that are probably going to be released for days. We know that there's a cost for all of these things. In this case, we can point very specifically to the large amounts of money that businesses pay for these items. We know there's a bigger cost for all of these items that is harder for us to figure out how to get a number assigned to, but we know there is a number to be assigned, and we need to work on figuring out how to assign that number. So for all of these items that are building up, that are getting thrown out, there's a simple solution. Stop giving them out, right? We do not need to give people things that they don't actually need. And those of us who are going into businesses need to be thoughtful about what we actually need. I think frequently of that scene in This Is a Wonderful Life, when there's a run on the bank and everyone wants all of their money immediately. And he says, no, but really, what do you need? And the one woman says, whatever it is, I think I need $1.35 to feed my family for the next week. And he kisses her. I mean, we really need to be thoughtful about what we need. So we know from data in California and other places that when this legislation goes into play, businesses save large amounts of money. we know that means that there's a large amount of stuff that is not going into the waste stream because it is never being given to us in the first place. So what will this legislation do? It will take single service items, whether it is a fork or a straw or wooden chopsticks or a condiment packet, or even a takeout lid on a cup that may not be walking away. I mean, they will give you a lid if you are clearly needing it for spill prevention because you're walking out. But if you're in a restaurant where you're about to sit down and they've given you your drink in a takeout cup, which ideally they shouldn't, but in some places they need to because of water issues in that municipality, they can't put a lid on it without asking you. And why does that matter? Because if they don't put a lid on it without asking you, they're probably not going to stick a straw in it without asking you. So, you know, we all these things now, they're still there. You have a toddler with you, you have a parent with Parkinson's, you have a need to have a lid and a straw, you get the lid and a straw. This is not about taking it away from anyone, but it is getting rid of what we don't actually need. So that means that the restaurants have to give us an opportunity to ask if we're ordering things online. It means that, again, if we are ordering, the default is going to be, we don't get anything, right? You need to ask for what you need. And the same at the counter. What it also prevents is those sealed packets that we all got once upon a time. So you went out and you went to a deli, you got yourself a yogurt, you're eating lunch at your desk and you forgot your reusable spoon. They give you a whole packet with knife, fork, spoon, napkins, salt and pepper, most of the things you don't need to go with the yogurt. So that's no longer going to be allowable. Other things that this bill does is it does ban a couple of items. Plastic stirrers will no longer be a thing of the world because they don't need to be a thing of the world. There are wood items, there are other items that can be used. And also those splash sticks. I don't know if Starbucks is the one who created those plastic sticks that go in the holes of the sippy lids on the cups, but they have been banned already in New York City. It was a long time for Westchester County to do the same. Things that this this bill doesn't touch, anything needed for safety isn't touched. If there's a health crisis, the departments of health still get to do what they need. When it comes to packaged meals going out to low-income households or meal plans for seniors or situations where you do need to provide everything that people might need, all of that still happens. None of that is being prevented. But at the end of the day, you know, we are not going to get all this stuff anymore. And less stuff is going to go into our waste stream. Our businesses will have more money. One of the things that was asked of us is why we didn't do what some other jurisdictions have done, which is require compostable items or give, better yet, an out. You can still give them out without asking if they're compostable. That is another version of this legislation which exists in places. We specifically did not take that approach for a couple of reasons. First off, those items are more expensive. Second off, those items are not of equal quality. Third off, not every composting facility is able to compost them, and most of them end up in our waste stream anyway. So while I'm not saying that we don't support using compostable items, a mass shift to compostable items was not what this bill was about. This bill was really about reducing waste, reducing what we take, what we need. I see someone shaking their head. I don't know if she's upset with me or whatnot, but with that, I will turn over for questions and be happy to answer any questions about this and about the legislation. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Legislator Pierce, for all your hard work. Before we get into questions, I actually would like to turn it over to the students that have made it here today. We have, I believe we have Larissa Berenti, Marian Karp, Katie Loga. We also have Joe Liberti, who is the Mamaroneck High School AP US Government and Politics teacher, as well as the founder and director of Original Civic Research and Action, and the mentors that helped guide the students in their advocacy efforts in making this happen. Michael Gottfried and Jenna Hafelin. So I'd love to invite them to introduce themselves and talk a little bit about the work that they did behind the scenes to get this done, move this along, and make this a strong bill that we could really be proud of here in Westchester County.
Thank you so much. I can jump in really quick. My name's Marian, and I'm part of Sustainable Solutions, which is our team of 3 students and our great mentors. So it's me, Katie, and Larissa who are on the Zoom, and then we're mentored by Jenna Heflin and Michael Gottfried, and we are students at Mamaroneck High School, and we're involved in original civic research and action, which, to quickly explain what that is it's a really unique, one of a kind, civic oriented independent research program. So that means we really get to follow a civic and local issue that we're passionate about and follow that issue and really create a project based off of our research that solves this problem and kind of creates a program or a tangible solution to the issue that we've been researching. And it's sort of a 4-year-long program that we got the chance to be a part of. So I'll turn it over to Larissa, who will tell you a bit about our research and what we focused on. And then Katie will tell you a little bit about the work we did to kind of leading up to this bill. And then I'll just finish saying a little bit about our involvement on the legislation.
Hi everyone, I'm Larissa Bertini. So as Marian said, in our sophomore year, we chose to take on the plastic problem in our community. And we were actually able to do this in our junior year by creating a pilot project where we had 4 local restaurants eliminate their plastic use and had them use alternative products, either paper, bamboo, all sorts of things like that. And something we actually implemented was this URO, this upon request only, which is now essentially what the single use foodware law is. And we saw very positive feedback from the restaurants, from the restaurant owners, and from customers who were, as mentioned before, really happy not having all this extra stuff given to them that they're not going to use and just let pile up in their drawers. So we were actually able to use a lot of the information and data we found from that and present it to local municipalities to help them get on board for this legislation and to sign resolutions, which Katie can talk a little bit about and how we got our 2 towns involved.
So after we completed the pilot project, as Larissa touched on, we had interviews with the restaurant owners, and across the board, they had great experiences with doing upon request only. So we thought that for our senior year of this project, we really wanted to focus on trying to implement upon request only on a broader scale. So, and it was around that time that we heard that a similar course of action was being taken at the county level. So then we reached out to the county legislators, we met with them, and we realized that we could do our part to garner support at our level in Larchmont and Mamaroneck for this bill to be passed. So we met with the Mamaroneck Sustainability Collaborative, the Larchmont Environmental Committee, and we encouraged them to encourage the Village of Larchmont and the town of Mamaroneck to pass resolutions in support of the legislation being passed. And ultimately, that's what we did. And the bill ended up passing. And I'll turn over to Marian, and she'll tell you a little bit about what we're doing now that the bill is passed.
Yes, so thank you so much, Katie and Larissa. So as they said, we've really been at the single-use plastic issue for 4 years, really on the broader scale. And as we were able to really understand the needs of the restaurants and local businesses, especially during a time when we found that they really needed support, we were able to find out that this URO policy was mutually beneficial to the needs of local businesses and to our environmental concerns in our community. And we found it to be a great stepping off point. And that's really why we focused on this policy and turned a lot of our attention to working with the Village of Larchmont and the town of Mamaroneck to really pass these ordinances that would help pass ultimately the single-use foodware law. And now that that is through, what's next, and which is very important, where everyone plays their own role, is the implementation and the education surrounding this legislation, which we have found that is equally important as the research that just went behind it, because we found in our work relating to environmental implementation of, sustainability, sustainable laws, we found that if the people don't understand it and really don't understand how beneficial it is to everyone, it's just a lot harder to really pick up and use this as a starting point for more impactful legislation and more change. So we're really using this as an opportunity to educate people on how eco practices are not that difficult to be a part of and are actually very easy to implement. And we're doing this through social media campaigns, and we're working across the county with Westchester Youth on designing various campaigns which can reach people of all different age groups through media platforms and various outlets that can really help educate people. And we're also speaking at events. For example, we're giving a TED Talk actually on Saturday at Mamaroneck High School to really educate surrounding this bill. And we're really just pushing out the message, making sure everyone knows their part, and working with businesses to make sure they're aware of their responsibility in regards to this legislation and that they have the tools necessary to be an impactful part of these next steps in relation to the greater climate change problem and the journey and the mission we're on here, really. And if any of my mentors or my teacher, Mr. Liberty, would like to jump in, that's great too.
Well, if I may, Professor, I don't know if you want to go first, but I just want to say these young students have been an amazing force that proves that the top-down, bottoms-up approach can be extremely effective in implementing change. Unbeknownst to the students, the county was working on this wonderful legislation, and I think we can't thank Legislator Pierce, Legislator Parker, Legislator Barr enough for having the courage to push from the top. But I also want to take a moment to thank Supervisor Elkind Eny of the town and Mayor Sarah Bauer of the Village of Larchmont for stepping up and committing our communities to work through the transition away from wasteful single-use plastic. I have to tell you that I started this journey with these students because I have a business in Aruba that distributes to restaurants and hotels and restaurants and other, and they banned single-use plastic. That was my goal, that was my driver. But when the students put together this pilot project and came up with this URO, it was a very solid first step. They broke the huge problem into a small component, and they have solved it for our community. And so I think that there's a lot to be learned. It's a case study and on how to go forward on large environmental initiatives. And the shining light in all this is our Professor Liberty, who makes it all possible. So I just want to say thank you to him.
So if Jenna, I know Jenna had to jump off around 8 o'clock, but she's still on. I would like to give the floor to her if she's available.
I think sadly she left.
Yeah, I think she had to jump off.
Okay, yeah, I knew she was going to might have jump off, so that's fine. So I do want to echo everything that's been said, and I don't want to take up too much time, but just roughly 6 years ago, when I launched this 4-year program, I had no model to sort of look at. I had a vision of what I wanted, and really was lucky enough to have the support by the superintendent and Board of Education to try something that had been tried before. And really what you're seeing here tonight is exactly what I envisioned, and that is the passion and curiosity of young adults who are fully capable of making change, wedded to the wisdom and expertise that exist in our community, which of course is the community mentors themselves, and bridging really the sort of the unfortunate wall that often exists between school and community. And I also have to, thank all of the elected officials from the villages, to town, all the way up to the county, for being open and willing to work with young people. I can't tell you how much it means to the students, and really the impact that you have when you are open to their work, to their research, and to their efforts. And so again, I just want to say thank you. It's been just, again, fantastic to see this work come together.
Thank you so much, Joe, and thank you so much, Marian, Larissa, and Katie, for your wonderful presentation and all your hard work these last 4 years taking on plastics in our community. We, especially coming from an environmental justice community like Peaksville, we really, really appreciate this work and trying to divert waste from a facility like the Wheelbrader that continues to really disproportionately harm our community members and those surrounding communities as well. I'd like to open up the floor for any questions that folks on the call may have for either legislator Pierce or the students, as well as the mentors. If you have any questions about the bill itself or about the process, I do want to uplift an earlier question I saw that I believe legislator Pierce answered regarding any materials that the businesses can print to display in publicly about these guidelines. Legislator Pierce, I don't know if you want to expand
So
on that.
there is a department in Westchester County, DEF, which also does these Recycling Right campaign, and they're going to be responsible for putting the official materials together. There will be posters, there will be other material available, but we, as mentioned, are going to be working with our youth voices to help also get the message out. Not only are these kids, obviously clearly fantastic, I do think they are wonderful messengers that people will open themselves up to listening to them in places where they might not want to listen to a legislator talk about this. And you saw the power of that firsthand. So we are really looking forward to continuing to work with them in the months ahead to get the message out for why this is not necessarily a tough switch, but a really important switch.
Amazing. And I see we have some hands raised as well. I'd like to pass it over to WASS member Paul.
Yeah, I would like to thank all of you because this effort, this intergenerational unity for systematic reform, it really is inspirational. And the question I have is more for the students. It's in regards to, I guess, the process of how you went about with your advocacy efforts. I know a lot of young students spend most of their times, even young adults, playing a lot of video games and not really getting involved in issues in their local community. And what you're doing, it is inspirational because you kind of transcended that level of student leadership and actually became community leaders, addressing stuff that a lot of adults overlooked as something that could be reformed in our solid waste management system. So the question I've had is, like, how did you communicate this to students? How did you, gain support from your peers to, I guess, support you on this initiative? Like telling people, hey, put the video game controller down, help me with this, because it's something that is impacting communities, even if it's not something that you're seeing immediately in front of you.
I can definitely, I can answer that. Thank you for your remarks. And so what's been really amazing about how we've gone about doing this project is that, first off, on one hand, we're in a cohort of other classmates who are working on other projects, maybe not necessarily relating to environmental issues, but focusing on just different topics within our community. And we've really been in this environment created and facilitated by Mr. Liberty, who's on the call, and he's our teacher. And we've kind of been in this class and program really of kids who are very passionate across the board about different issues relating to local government and community involvement. And beyond that, we've definitely utilized many tools to address the attention of our peers, and we've really found social media as a valuable tool in pushing out messages to our generation and to capturing the attention of the peers around us. And we've just really been able to utilize a lot of local media platforms to really spread our message and our ideas. But we've also worked with student petitions, and we've worked with other students consulting on other local environmental advocates. And there are a lot of great youth groups. Some that come to mind are Sunrise Westchester and various groups across the county that are also leading impactful change. And if Katie and Larissa have anything to add also.
I'm typing our social media in the link, but Katie, you can.
I agree with everything that Marion said. I think, obviously, as you said, it's a lot of students our age, social media is a big part of their lives. So we just thought that in order to communicate effectively with them, we could use that as a tool. We post infographics on our Instagram, we post of our presentations. And so we found that that's been a really effective way of communicating with others our age and getting people interested on this initiative as well.
Thank you, Marion and Katie, for those answers. It looks like we have a couple more hands raised. Ann White.
Yeah, yes, thank you so much for this. I live in a senior retirement community, and we had the county executive come and speak to us Monday evening, and he so acknowledged you, Legislator Pierce, and was grateful for the work that you did on this. Our main questions are how do and the board of trustees, our board of trustees, the Village of Sleepy Hollow has a very extensive effort to collect food scraps to be turned into compost. So that's the main thing that has really energized people, gotten the students engaged. But now the Board of Trustees is saying, what can we do more to, first of all, make sure that this new legislation is actually implemented. And we have a lot of small entrepreneurs who are, who will need a lot of hand-holding, we think, to really understand how they can do this. I think they're all interested in it. And we're also finding, particularly with entrepreneurs for whom English is not their first language, that the kids are an essential part of understanding what's going on and educating them. So I'm really interested in connecting with the Larchmont group, and maybe you can put something in the chat to a way to connect with you later on, because our high school environmental club has been re-energized, and we're beginning to introduce the food scraps program in one of our schools to try it out. And they, I think, would jump on the plastics piece of it too. And one question for you, Legislator Pierce, is does this apply to school cafeterias?
So yes, it actually does. We had originally thought the bill wouldn't apply to school cafeterias, and we were quite surprised to discover that it did. And so immediately pivoted to talk to school superintendents so that we could get a sense of what the reaction was going to be, and to make certain that the bill was written in a way that would be functional for them with whatever procedures they have in place, because obviously we don't want to do anything that would cause health impacts in the way they operated. That being said, the school districts we were able to connect with were very enthusiastic. They were very supportive. And so we didn't get any pushback. We didn't get any concerns. They were eager to, have this move forward. They are aware that they are spending more than they should on some of these items. Again, there's a dollar cost, and I think the schools are actually pretty savvy about what they are being charged by their food service providers. And this is going to require their food service providers to handle things a little bit differently. So yeah, I mean, there are other work to be done there, like the world of single wrapping apples and plastic film, which just drives me nuts. But one thing at a time, and that will be another thing in the future.
Thank you, Legislator Peters. Next up, we have another WASS member, Terry Cardoz.
Thank you. Yes, I am very happy that all your efforts and hard work have come to fruition. I just have one question. Do I assume correctly that paper napkins are also part of this legislation, and that one has to ask if one wants to receive a paper napkin?
That is correct. One will have to ask for paper napkins as well.
Thank you.
Thank you. I think that might be the last hand we had up. Are there any other questions? Are there any other folks in the audience that have any questions for either Legislator Pierce or our amazing environmental advocates on the call?
I also don't know if my colleague Catherine Parker wants to jump in and add anything that I neglected. So that's another, option there.
How does that sound, Vanessa? Is that all right?
Absolutely.
I will just say, from the standpoint of somebody who I'm in my 10th year as a Westchester County legislator, it was astonishing how receptive even the convenience stores, the lobbyists from the convenience for representing the convenience stores were to this. They actually sent a letter in support, which, kudos to my colleague, Legislator Pierce, for having some pretty powerful conversations. And I think really, again, making it very clear that we're concerned about small businesses and saving money as much as we are concerned also about the larger ramifications of what that plastic actually represents when we're talking about climate change, and the fact that plastic comes, is a byproduct of fossil fuels. And we have to look at this as far as how do we, it's many, 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 many different actions that we will have to take to reach those sustainable solutions, right? And so I think it was just one of the rare times where we had public hearings and we had many people signed up to speak, and they were all in support. and again, the big lobbyists who have our number, they certainly pay attention to what's on our agenda. They follow these things. Even they recognized that for their membership, this would be a very good law. I also want to just add one thing that I think to Anne's point about what's happening in Sleepy Hollow and working with students. We're so fortunate that we have a teacher like Joe Liberti at Mamaroneck High School who has really made it a mission to get, help really tap into students' interest and really, give them an opportunity to show some extraordinary leadership. To have that person at the school is very important, I think, to getting a student, student advocacy really going off the ground. And I'm sure that the students from Mamaroneck, who, by the way, they didn't only speak with they spoke with the business community, they spoke with other elected leaders, they spoke with students, but I would see them at different civic organizations. They were speaking to the Lions Club. They were speaking to, really going through and trying to figure out all the pockets of the community to engage in this discussion, put it out there that this is something that they wanted to see happen for the community, and really sell the idea, which is extraordinary. And again, I just want to say it's an important aspect of what they were doing, really taking tremendous effort, and they were just remarkable. So I'm going to end there because I think you've heard from, the main sponsors and the students, and there's so much there. I don't have a lot to add on this particular piece of it, but just to say that it was just such a piece of beauty as it was coming together, just really a remarkable piece of legislation.
Thank you so much, Legislator Parker. And we really appreciate your support. We know that no one legislator can make these things happen, right? We need to have the full support of the body of the county. And so we appreciate so much that Westchester County has prioritized this and moved on this, and look forward to future initiatives to move us closer to zero waste. I do believe I missed Marissa, who I believe had her hand up earlier. Marissa, if you're still on the call and would like to ask your question.
I just wanted to say, I think the research the students did is really admirable. And my question for you is, I've been hearing you have all had like lots of success while doing your research and good responses from the community, but did you face any challenges or roadblocks? And when you did, how did you overcome them? Or like, what tips would you give to other students that are going out into the community to make change?
I think one roadblock that we faced, just going back to the pilot project, as Larissa mentioned, it was initially a little hard to get participants just because this is sort of, we were trying something that hadn't really been done before in the community. So we had to go door to door to a bunch of different restaurants. But I think the key there was just perseverance and really not letting up, like not getting discouraged after we spoke with one restaurant and they didn't really think it would be feasible for their business, just to keep trying. And, we ended up going to 15 restaurants, but we got 4 participants and they were really eager and enthusiastic. And so I think just, I guess, not letting the failures get you down, because there were 4 restaurants out there that were really willing to participate, and we had great experiences with all of them. So
yeah, to add on to that, another thing we struggled with kind of with the pilot project was like communication, and we might not have always gotten like a response like right away. So definitely just like being persistent and just like reaching out, even though it may feel like a little annoying, but like you're being a little like a pest, but it's really important to communicate and get like through what to the restaurant owners in our case, to communicate with them and to have them see what we're seeing as well.
Yeah, definitely what Katie and Larissa said. And just in general, I feel like as a principle of advocacy, it's kind of, the journey kind of is just like how you work through challenges. It's like, they just come like left and right, really. But I think it's really important not to get discouraged, like Larissa said, and really like be persistent with your goals and ideas. And another challenge is when you're a student, these are like, especially when you're working with businesses, they have like real priorities and goals that are very, very real and substantial. And it can sometimes be hard to take a pause from that to hear what some students are working on. And, as a student, you have advantages because you have the perspective of youth, but then you also you lack a little bit of credibility in terms of if you're worth spending time on, or if what you have to say is valuable. And so I think it's important to like be aware of the strengths that come from being like a youth advocate, and also the disadvantages, and really like play to those strengths, because challenges can come up too. So I think it's really important to just really prove your case, and in any opportunity prove that your message is really worth the time. And I'd say an advantage for us was like always being really prepared for all of our different meetings, and having materials and handouts and infographics that were really able to catch the attention of business owners. And we presented substantial research to them that really validated what we were hoping for and what we were asking for. So I'd say like having something to back up everything you're doing and saying is really important when you're a student advocate.
Super inspiring.
May I add one minor point on that? they are absolutely correct in saying that they were always prepared. But one thing they also did, which was tremendously important, was early on to get the support of some of the more senior, senior leaders of our community. So they met with the former supervisor, Nancy Seligson, who had has a tremendous resume of accomplishments in our community. And they met with a former trustee, Carol Kazaza Herman, who is also, in the industry. And most importantly, they got Marlene Colbert, who is an icon in our community, to work with them and to give them ideas as to how to avoid many of the no's that you might ordinarily get. So I think it's really important to reach out within your community and find the individuals who can shepherd you, and not mentor you, but sort of guide you with some solid wisdom as to who to speak to and what not to do and what to do.
Thank you. I know we're getting close to time, and I do want to make sure we get all the questions that were put into the chat. I think there was a question, this would be for Legislator Pierce or Legislator Parker, as to whether there will be a food scraps recycling mandate. I think there was some interest in the chat around that.
Well, there's certainly a lot of interest in my office on that. So I can't say that it's imminently coming, but I can say that it's something that we are definitely talking about, and many of us are working on and feel is super important. So so yeah, work to be done on that, but it's very much on our radar and we are plugging away.
Yes, I would just add that one of the criticisms of our county food scrap program, and there haven't been many, but one was that initially when it was started, that we were still transporting food waste up to Ulster County. And so, just as for the carbon footprint, that wasn't so great. We did open up a food composting place in Cortland. And so now we're not going up to Ulster anymore. So we have really reduced, the carbon footprint there. And again, we've made it so economical for communities to participate. They pay a subsidized rate for what's called a tipping fee. The expense of that garbage, whether it's food waste or not, there's always a fee to take that. And we've made the food waste fee much less than the regular fee. So really an incentive to participate. And at this point, I think we have somewhere in the neighborhood of, 16 municipalities does that sound right to you, Erica? I think it's 16 in the county that are participating. We have 43 municipalities in total, so we still have some work to do. And I think that, between the county executive and the Board of Legislators, there is, quite a lot of desire to see, a more robust program. But we have a couple of things that we need to make sure that we have in place before we can take that next step.
And I will add, if anyone has not been down to the composted facility yet, one of the things ideally is for communities that have the space to create their own composting facility. And it really, people think that's a huge deal. It really isn't a huge deal. You can do it on a relatively small footprint. It is relatively low tech. And so Westchester County has developed a learning facility that any group can go to see what such a setup might look like and what is involved, so that they can realize that it's actually not that difficult for communities to take on their composting. And because that's the best solution of all, composting in your own home community. The compost is right there to be used for your own community, for planting, whether it's your own personal garden that you pick up or for your town's parks or a community vegetable garden, you know, it is the perfect solution rather than trucking everything far away. So I encourage everyone to look, take a visit there if you haven't.
Thank you. Well, I know we're getting close to time, but I just want to say a big thank you to the students, the mentors, our legislators who came today to present on this wonderful new bill. We are so excited to help get it up on its feet. So please, Legislator Pierce, Legislator Parker, feel free to use us as a resource to put information out to our members, if there are any next steps in terms of implementation, if there's any ways in which we can help. Same goes for the students who came and presented today. If there's any ways in which we as WASS can help your efforts in ensuring that we can get your message out as far and wide as possible, please do let us know. We're really excited to have you on this call and to be working with you all. So inspiring to hear about your work, and I really feel like the future is bright, knowing that we have students who are so passionate and aren't waiting to turn 18 to go to college to really take action, because as has been said throughout this call, any one of us with the effort, with the motivation, the persistence, and the support of a small group of people with expertise and the inspiration to get this done can make things like this possible. And I think that that's something that we as WASS want to see, want to accomplish on many levels as it relates to really diverting our waste from the trash incinerator we currently have in Peekskill. But with that, before we go and end our call, I do want to ask if we could all take a picture before we go. If folks have their camera on or haven't had their camera on, please feel free to do so. But we'd love to take a picture with all the folks. I know some folks had to leave a little early. But Courtney, do you mind taking a gallery shot for us all?
Not at all. All right, everybody. Oh, I should turn on my own camera.
I think you might have
All
to
right,
take a couple.
everyone. So no blinking, everyone smile and say, what do we want to say? Clean air.
Clean air.
Got it.
Amazing. All righty. Well, thank you all so much for coming tonight. I think this was a very inspiring conversation. And thank you again to the legislators who took the time out of their day to come in and really kind of brief us on this important piece of legislation. We look forward to working with you all in the future. We did want to cut out some time again, as we do typically at our meetings, for folks who can stay a little bit after 8:30, to remind you all that we do have our action items that we're working on here at WASS on the county level to push for zero waste here in Westchester County. So I do want to invite you all, if you haven't already, to sign our petition. This is a petition for individuals requesting that the county put resources towards hiring a zero waste consultant so we can come up with a plan to commit to moving ourselves off of trash incineration here in Westchester County. So I'm going to ask one of our WASS members to go ahead and drop that link in the chat. Again, this is for individuals. It will take only a minute or two to fill out. And this will also send an email out to the county legislature as well as the county executive, letting him know that you are in support of our efforts. Secondly, we are also currently circulating a letter of support to the county in this request for a zero waste consultant. So if you are an organization, if you are a business owner, if you are a local leader, if you are a local representative on your city council or board of trustees, we'd love to have you on our letter of support. So please do sign on. We have a growing number of organizations already signed on, over 50 organizations from across Westchester County, and as well as a handful of legislators, local legislators, I should say, who have committed to our efforts. But if you are in contact with your local reps, or if you'd like to present this to any local leaders or businesses on our behalf, we would very much welcome that and be happy to provide you with any follow-up resources or support to make that happen. And lastly, we also have a template email language for you all to use in this effort to make your colleagues, your local representatives, your local community leaders aware of our efforts to push for zero waste on a county level and hire zero waste consultants. So we are providing you all with some template email language that you can send or you can use to send out to your local representatives or to, as I mentioned, your colleagues who may be interested in signing on to our effort. Feel free to use our language. And we look forward to working with you all to continue to develop our campaign in hopes of having a comprehensive countywide zero waste plan in the very near future. So I just want to give a couple minutes for folks to go ahead and do those action items. If they weren't dropped in the chat, I believe they were. Please feel free to go ahead and click through those. We will also be sending them out in a follow-up email. I know some folks had to go off, and I did want to make mention of this earlier on. But WASS is also involved in a number of efforts on the state level. There was some mention earlier in the chat about some statewide campaigns, such as current efforts to pass the packaging reduction legislation that's currently being considered on the state level, as well as efforts to kind of stop the attacks on the CLCPA. A number of you may have gotten an email from us in the last couple of weeks, kind of alerting you all of a bill that was introduced by Senator Parker and Assemblymember Barrett to amend the environmental conservation and public service laws that would essentially change New York State's greenhouse gas emissions accounting from the current 20-year global warming potential to 100 years. Which would essentially undermine a core element of the state's landmark Climate Act, the Climate Leadership and Community Protection Act that so many of us worked hard to pass, and then to ensure really represented the needs of our communities here in Westchester, especially in those in peak scale, given that it is a disadvantaged community or as considered by the DEC. And I just want to give a big thank you to all of those of you who responded to our call to action and who sent in memos of opposition. We were heard by the state legislature. And as far as we're concerned, this is off of the negotiating table for the budget session. But it may be a potential threat during the legislative session that runs through June. So I want to celebrate that we did make this victory and we were able to push back against the attacks on weakening the CLCPA. But I do want to reiterate that we have to stay vigilant because this may be something that rears its head in a couple weeks or in a couple months as the state legislature goes to close their legislative session. So we will be sending out more alerts as we learn more and those things develop. But again, thank you all for continuing to engage in our work. And one last thank you to, again, county legislators, Pierce, Parker, the wonderful students that we had today, as well as the mentors and teachers for all your hard work and that wonderful presentation. I hope you all have a great night and we look forward to seeing you next month on April 10th, Wednesday at 7:30 p.m.
Thank you.
Oh, I'm
May
sorry,
10th.
May 10th. I apologize. Thank you all. Have a good night.
Good night, everyone.
Right.